submissions of my senior brothers on the platform. I could literally preempt exactly what Honorable Haruna Idrisu and Nafumia were going to say before they said it. The reason is because it is in the interest of the political establishment to do all they can to undermine Alan's the viability of Alan's independent candidature. And we all know that it's beneficial to the political establishment to continue to perpetuate the duopoly within the system generally. And that is kind of important here to note. Because they know the distinct character and distinct persona of Alan and what he brings on board this political game. And the fact is that anybody who has encountered him knows that he is surely not just taking an action, and he knows exactly what he is doing. But also, let me make a quick comment about what Honorable Haruna says, that Alan has only endorsed change, and that Mahama probably represents that change. I just wanted to say that is it the same Mahama who told the graduates that he is not a magician to be creating jobs for them, as to whether he's the same Mahama who represents that level of change for young people in this country. And that is a conversation we would have to have. But most importantly, why does this work? Why does Alan's independent candidature work? What I think the panelists and people are ignoring is that quite distinct from Alan's strategy is that he says that I'm running as an independent candidate, but he models his campaign after a similar situation that happened in Kenya in 2013, the Jubilee Alliance in 2013, where Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto formed what they call the Jubilee Alliance. Quite fundamental in that alliance is that it pitched the candidates far beyond their individual persons. So that when you are buying into Alan's ideas, there is a buy-in of an association far greater than the individual himself. So you are buying into a movement for change that is distinct from whatever independent candidature you have seen before.
A movement of how many members?
Exactly, and that is exactly what we should be asking ourselves.
You are actually about to start the movement, so we don't even have numbers to deal with, right? The NDC NPP can guarantee that some 6 million votes are secured for them ahead of the elections.
Two things. Firstly, their conviction that no matter how abysmal a party's performance in government, this will be the NDC and the Mahama for 4 years or 6 years, also and probably the current perception of the governance and the MPP, they will still have people who will still vote for them in that regard, is really a problem. One, you cannot assume in that regard, essentially because the political climate is one that is calling for change. Patrice Talon in Benin faced the same challenges where people felt that it was impossible. But political climate showed that people, no matter how they had been attached historically to political parties, were willing to change. But most importantly, let me just pass this comment that possibly if Kwame Nkrumah had not left the UGCC as a party, Ghana wouldn't have gained our independence as then. It took him exiting the party in principle for us to gain our independence. The people in the Pentecost Church, led by Jesus Mama Akion, have showed us that it takes a bold decision to leave a system to pursue your own agenda to become the Pentecost Church far greater than what the Apostolic Church represented in that regard. But also, the duopoly of the NDC and the MPP is in their current forms are structurally not representative of the ideals that promote the national discourse or interest at large. So, for example, there is a multifaceted opposition to whatever any party brings. So what you have is that everything about the free senior high school, no matter how brilliant it is, you have people in the NDC opposing it, same as the MPP opposing the community-based senior high schools, even though they become campus of the bedrocks of the survival of the free senior high school now. So there is a need for a multi-day discourse, and the objective populace of this country who understands this will be willing to make a determination come December 7th. But also, we need to assess why the movement for change is important. One, the need to put our best foot forward. Quite fundamentally, what Alan says is that we are at a point in our nation's history how the only way we can advance as a nation is where all human resources are on the table, not because of our political colors, not because of our cultural backgrounds, not because of our religious or relationships, but primarily because of our competence. And that him as an independent president is one who will be allowed to tap into all political climates in general. So it means that whether you are NPP or NDC, he will surely satisfy the provisions of Article 78 of the Constitution that mandates him to appoint a majority of his ministers from Parliament. However, in that consideration, he will make a fair analysis or choice from both parties based on your competence, not just merely because you're a member of the
He must first demonstrate that he's credible and to get close to winning elections. Old wine in new wine skin. Is that the case?
Is there any doubt as to the credibility of Alan? Is there any doubt as to his competence?
How does he answer to the question that he spent over a decade in government? So what's new?
I think you respectfully answered the question in your submission early on as to the nature of executive presidency within the limits of our Constitution. It is important to note that within a government structure, executive power resides with the president. It is the agenda of the president that drives. What it means is that as a minister of state, all you can do is within the limits of your ministry. And even to that effect, that is subject to the approval of the president. What Alan says is that give me the mandate to wield executive power and let me put forward an agenda called the Great Transformational Plan that is supposed to be a 5-year plan that transforms this nation. It is a conversation that is quite important, but he says that at the core of governance is the ability of the president to control the narrative and set the agenda as to how he thinks the nation should be run. That is a power that cannot be wielded by Minister of State within the limits of the Constitution.
He joined Nana Akufo-Addo and told us these same stories, projected him as the very best that this country will ever experience in its history. What's the story today that he is criticizing? He says that he would have done things differently if he were president. Did you hear him?
Respectfully, I think on your own platform, I joined in the last interview about a few days ago. He mentioned and acknowledged the fact that, listen, Nana, for example, is one who believes in industrialization. But he framed up why he is for industrial transformation. He created a distinction of a prioritization of an agenda within the purview of the candidates. And a comparative analysis is, for example, if you look at NAPCO, for example, which is supposed to be a temporary employment factor for the government, NAPCO's budget allocation was about 3-4 times much more than what was allocated for the 1D1F. So in as much as the president will ordinarily advance his objectives, you do realize that the priority is with regards to the president. But
you think about it again, that seriously you need a parliament to give you all this spending. And if you are going to win election without MPs, and you are going to tap into, as it were, the NDC, the NPP, and you cannot guarantee their loyalty, especially from the NPP that you have hurt them. And then the NDC too, you would have hurt their chances of winning elections. You think it's going to be that, easy to run a government? Did I lose Duke? Okay, so I'll just share a couple of messages, and Dr. John Osai-Kwapon of the CDD says that here are his sentiments. He says, when you hear the people say, we are tired of the NDC MPP duopoly, quote unquote, this regularly comes up in their surveys. Ghanaians have regularly said more parties are needed according to Afrobarometer. But when asked about voting intentions in Afrobarometer, no more than 5% have ever said they intend to vote outside the NDC MPP duopoly. Dr. Tue Champong had mentioned this. And our election results also show We never vote outside of the duopoly in huge numbers. Will 2024 be different? I have my doubts. I have my doubts because I don't think an independent candidate emerging from the deep bowels of duopoly politics is the type of independent the people are thirsty for. What do you say about that? Because that is critical, that Alan is coming from the MPP, from a party. What the people are thirsty for is not that kind. They are thirsty for someone, who comes from a new thinking, not from having been disappointed in a political party. Yes, Duke.
This question is a consideration of three very factors. Number one, or even before the factors, is that we need to understand that whatever analysis that has been put across are one that probably were made prior to Honorable Lanchamante's announcement. That is one. So that we need to consider the new narrative that will have existed far after his announcement. But also, at the core of change within the political system is one, the existing political climate, two, the candidate's personality, and three, the message of the candidate. Let me first hit on political climate. The country now is one where there is great apathy from conversations, mainly because people are largely disappointed with the current structural elements within the MP and the NDC. And there is a call for a third force. As to the nature of the third force is what my subsequent submissions will come across. Now, the candidate's personality. Alan Chamanten has a track record of representing the ideals of young people. And he says that representation of a people is not just about age. It's about whether your ideals are ones that are reflective of the very demography that you want to represent. So that for well over 30 years, through the UNDP and as Minister of State and in his works in trade across Africa, has he been representative of job creation and the creation of opportunities for young people across this country and across Africa? The answer is an emphatic yes. A track record far more greater than any independent candidate aspirant in the history of this country. A track record.
Why does this belief of his not manifested in the NPP in the first place? Because if the youth are for him, the youth is in the NPP as well.
So that's a legit question. My response is simple. Now, we need to analyze statistically the percentage of people who vote within the NPP as against the people who vote within an electoral cycle for the NPP in a national election. Does that percentage amount to a convincing understanding that that percentage will surely reflect the national agenda in general and the nation as a whole? How many people, you are taking the 200,000 people who will vote in the delegate election in November, that is equal to 2.9% of the 7 million votes that the NPP needs to win an election. Match that against the over 17 million people or 19 million people who potentially could vote in December. That is a figure that is probably
all right.
That's not even significant in general.
Okay.
So that percentage cannot be a basis of assessing the popularity of Alan within the general election.
Okay. Duke, I'm sorry, but we have to end it here. Thank you very much.